Hi, welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. The program is Focal Point. The network is the American Family Radio Talk Network. And again, I want to stress this. Ladies and gentlemen, do not be naive about this. Do not be fooled about this. The homosexual agenda is coming after your pro-family organization, and they're coming after your church. They want to strip us from our tax-exempt status. They want us fired from our jobs. I've just given you two examples. A pro-family organization in New Zealand stripped of its tax-exempt status simply because they support the natural family. They don't hate anybody. They just advocate for the biblical truth that marriage is a union of one man and one woman. And for that, they have been publicly shamed, publicly rejected, publicly scorned by the government of New Zealand. Now realize that's a much more serious issue than just having some homosexual activist say you're a hater and you're a homophobe and all of that, because this is the government of New Zealand using governmental powers to punish them for supporting natural marriage. And then this realtor in Canada lost his job because he says that children do best in a home with a married mother and father, and cited research to back it up. And he lost his job. He was fired. So make no mistake. Now, that's New Zealand. That's Canada. But we've seen the same stuff happening in the United States, and I will flat out guarantee you they're coming after our tax-exempt status on the grounds that we peddle hate, we peddle homophobia, we are evil, and we have to be stopped. We cannot receive any sort of tax benefits because of our message. I've got a piece here from CNN. This is published on the CNN website by a guy by the name of John Blake. And the title of his piece is "When Christians Become a Hated Minority." This is on CNN. In other words, this issue now has become so visible. The profile on this issue is now so high that even a leftist website like CNN says, hey, wait a minute, Christians have become a hated minority in the United States of America. This is a long piece. It's a 5-page piece. And I want to read you a couple of excerpts from this where the writer John Blake is making his point. There's a couple of quotes from a guy by the name of Mark Jordan, who is the author of a book called Recruiting Young Love, How Christians Talk About Homosexuality. Here's what he has to say. Truly damaging speech cannot be excused just because it expresses genuine religious belief. Some religious beliefs, for instance, that marriage is a union of one man and one woman, and that homosexuality is immoral, unnatural, and unhealthy. Some religious beliefs, sincerely held, are detestable. They cannot be spoken without disrupting social peace. Now, this guy is a professor at Washington University in St. Louis. And he was saying, look, if a Christian verbalizes his sincerely held religious views about marriage or about homosexuality, he is disturbing the peace by definition. That is damaging speech. And he says we cannot excuse that. That's his word, cannot be excused just because it expresses genuine religious beliefs. So in other words, if I get up in public and I simply quote Genesis 2:24, for this reason a man will leave his father and mother and shall cleave to his wife, and become one flesh. That's a man, that's one man, clinging to his wife, that's one, two shall become one flesh. That is now speech that cannot be tolerated. For me to quote that verse in public, according to this professor at Washington University in St. Louis, disturbs public peace. His phrase is it disrupts social peace. So do not be blind to this. That's why we've been fighting this for decades, and we will continue to fight it, Because, ladies and gentlemen, everything is at stake here. Everything that we care about as Americans, every bit of liberty that we cherish, every bit of religious liberty that we cherish, that's at risk here in the face of the homosexual agenda. They want to destroy us. They're not interested in debate. They're not interested in dialogue. They're interested in one thing, and that is annihilation. They want us wiped off the face of the planet. They want our church doors closed. If they can't close our church doors, they want us bottled up inside the four walls of our churches. They don't want us to utter a peep of biblical truth outside the four walls of our churches. They want tax-exempt status taken away from organizations like FRC and AFA. They're coming. That's their agenda. They've made efforts already to do it. So do not be under any illusions about where homosexual activists and secular fundamentalists are headed. You know, and secular fundamentalists are out there doing all the disrupting they can right now. They have sent a threatening letter to a Georgia school district. By the way, if you want to join the conversation on this topic, the threat to religious liberty in America, 888-589-8840, the number to call, 888-589-8840, to talk specifically about the threat, the general threat to religious liberty, and specifically, if you want to get specific, the threat that the homosexual agenda poses to religious liberty. So here is the ACLU. They just fire off a letter, 49 cents, to this Georgia school district, threatening, no, this is Freedom from Religion Foundation up in Wisconsin. You know, think about this. You know, they always say, it's always, what they say is it's always Christians that are poking their noses into other people's business. Why can't you just leave us alone? Why do you have to keep inserting ourselves into our own private business? Leave us alone. And here is an organization in Wisconsin, and they're trying to tell a school district in Georgia what to do. Who's the nosy one? Who's the bully here? Who's pushing people around? It's this Freedom from Religion Foundation in Wisconsin. A Georgia school district will no longer allow prayers or songs with religious references at graduation ceremonies after the Freedom from Religion Foundation threatened to file a lawsuit and said, you make them listen to a Christian song at graduation. That's a form of bullying. Who is the bully here? It's the Freedom from Religion Foundation. And this says you can't seek out songs that exclude students. Fine. So they're saying you got to pick songs that exclude every Christian student in the school. That's exclusion, and they're the ones that are behind it. You got to pick songs that exclude all Christians. 888-589-8840. And, you know, this question was raised on a blog. Are evangelical Christians rapidly becoming one of the most hated minorities in America? This is on CNN. And Joe Carter, who is an editor for the Gospel Coalition, which is an online evangelical magazine, he says, look, it's easier for Christians to just go along. And I'm interested in what you think about that, how Christians, how they respond to these kind of threats. Carter says it's very powerful. You don't want to be lumped in with bigots because that's a powerful word. And talks about Mark Potok from the Southern Poverty Law Center, who accuses us and FRC of being hate groups. And he says the definition of a hate group is that attacks and maligns an entire class of people for their, quote, immutable characteristics. So notice that the whole thing is predicated on Mark Potok belief that people are born that way. If people aren't born that way, then they have absolutely no basis for their charge that we are a hate group. If sexual preference is ultimately a matter of choice, then they simply have no case whatsoever. But the point here, 5-page column on CNN, Christians are becoming a hated minority. I'd like to know what you think about that. 888-589-8840 is the number to call. Let's start by going to John, Fayetteville, North Carolina. John, welcome to Focal Point. What's on your mind?
Good afternoon, Brian.
Howdy.
I got to be really careful the way I say this because I love what you guys do, and I stand firmly behind you, March for the Gospel. But I've got to kind of play devil's advocate here.
Shoot.
And I've got to ask, where do we draw the line? I understand that we have constitutionally protected rights as Christians. I do understand that the people today have so butchered the Constitution that our forefathers are just reeling about it. Okay? But when I read back in my Bible, nobody has been dipped in pitch and lit on fire to light a garden. Nobody's been thrown in the arena in front of lions. And even today, like in other countries, nobody has shot members of our families and say, okay, deny this Christ bunch of junk, or I'm going to shoot somebody else. We've not really faced persecution. I get scared that if we try to fight too much, we're going to be perceived as whining. If we go out, and if it's like Peter said, we have to decide who are we going to obey, man or God. If we go out and not maliciously, but in love, and they don't see that love. They call it hate. But we go out in love and kindness, and we preach the truth. The gospel's going to offend them bad enough. And if we get thrown in prison, then we witness in prison. If we get run out of town, we preach where we get run out of town. If they kill us, we go to heaven. And as much as I'm agreeing for fighting for our rights, shouldn't we kind of be careful that we don't be perceived as whining about it?
It sounds to me, John, and help me if I'm misunderstanding you, but if I follow the logic of what you are saying, is we should just capitulate, we should just concede, we shouldn't offer a peep of protest, we shouldn't try to protect our constitutional rights in any way. We should just roll over and take whatever they dish out.
I'm not saying that whatsoever.
Well, tell me, then clarify. Tell me what you are saying then. If you're not saying just roll over and take whatever they dish out, what are you saying?
No, sir. I'm saying go out in love and continue to do it anyway. If they arrest you for doing it, do it in prison. Don't.
So wait, John. So if they arrest you and charge you, don't defend yourself. Don't get a lawyer. Don't try to make a constitutional case that you've got religious liberty. Just go to prison.
Maybe this is where you can educate me, and I'm being completely serious here because, like I said, I totally agree with everything you're saying, and I'm so careful. I don't want to come across sounding the wrong way on this. I understand standing for our rights. If somebody breaks into your house, call the police. I understand. I know we.
Well, and I'm going to have to let you go, John, because we're up against a hard break. I'm going to come back and talk about what Paul did in Acts 16. Because he stood on his rights as a Roman citizen. Got right in their face, right in their grill with it. Back in 2, stay with us.
In the third world,